Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. This webinar is the first in a series taking place over the next couple of months. And during the time, we're going to explore the career and professional qualification options in BDO. My name is Olivia Mohan, and I'm Head of Learning and Development in BDO. Today, we're going to focus on corporate governance with the aim of helping you understand the pathways available to you if this is a career option choice for you. I'm delighted to be joined by Michelle Keane, Director in our Corporate Governance Department, and also Con Cleary, Regional Development Manager with the Chartered Covenant Institute on Ireland. What we're going to look at today, we'll explore the areas of, I suppose, firstly, what corporate governance actually is, what are the careers and what do they look like in this space in practice, and the different training and qualification routes, and then how our graduates can get started. If anyone's any questions, you can happily pop them into the chat function there, and hopefully we'll get time to address them at the end. So we'll get going, and Michelle, I think we'll start with you. And can I just ask you to talk to us a little bit about, for anybody who's new to this space, what exactly is corporate governance and what does it look like practically day to day?
Yeah, thank you, Olivia. I suppose corporate governance at its core is how a company is directed and controlled. So basically it means how decisions are made, how risk is managed, and how accountability, I suppose, is maintained at the board level. So in practical terms, what is trying to be achieved is that you're ensuring directors have the right information at the right time to make informed decisions at board level. And it's really important then that those decisions that are made at board level are documented and they are compliant with regulation and legislation. Day to day, what it actually looks like when you're in the role itself, it involves a lot of supporting board and committee members. That might be anything from assisting them with drafting their board papers, their agenda, to attending the meetings, to drafting action points and ensuring that they're followed through from the different stakeholders or management that they have been assigned to. It would also mean drafting minutes, liaising very closely with the chairs and the senior management of companies. It might entail also maybe advising them on corporate governance requirements that they may have, and just ensuring that they are being compliant with the legislation and the regulations here in Ireland.
Hey, great. Thank you for that, Michelle. So, Con, in your own opinion, why is this area becoming so important in organisations and in business?
Thanks, I'm delighted to be here, Olivia, and hopefully people on the call will find this useful. So, I mean, it's one of those interesting things, just to follow on from Michelle, like governance now is involved in every aspect of a business. So when we talk about directed and controlled, it's every part of the business that business is involved in. There is a governance requirement within that. And the challenges of governance are where we've seen where there are failures in governance or poor governance in place. You have everything can happen to you from regulatory sanctions to include penalties, which obviously then leads on to that dreaded reputational damage. And ultimately, I think from a board's point of view, is that financial loss, is that spin-off of financial loss that comes either through penalties or loss of clients or customers and that reputational damage. And the truth is, when you get into that space of where a failures in governance happens, the amount of time and years it takes to build back up that reputation and to get yourself back to where you were, in some ways is nearly immeasurable because it's different for every organisation. But we've seen multiple examples in the past where companies where they've had failures 5, 10, 15 years ago are still dealing with some of the damages that have happened, either from a reputational point of view or from a financial loss point of view. So clearly it's crucially important. If you're working in this space, you're involved in all aspects of the business, and in a very crucial role for an organisation to be financially sound and stable to run itself.
Okay, great. Thanks for that, Con. It's a good understanding of why that's really important there. Michelle, you've worked in BDO for a good number of years, all the way up to director as you are now. So maybe talk us through what a typical corporate governance or company secretariat team looks like.
Yeah, so I've been with BDO just over 12 years at this point. So our typical structure would be that we are led by our partner, Ursula Moore, myself as a director, and then the team would consist of, we have senior managers, assistant managers, and then we've got trainees at different levels. So whether they're just fresh out of college and starting their career, whether they're part qualified and they're working towards that qualification. We also have admins, and then we get interns in as well throughout the year to get exposure as they're doing their degree, so they can understand what this role might look like as an option post their qualification. the good thing about the way the teams are kind of set up is that you really do have a mix of experience across each team. So every team has a manager or a senior manager that is led by. That really ensures, from our perspective, that there is a clear progression and a pathway for trainees. And that was something that was important to me when I started my career. So I do think it's something we put a good focus on. So we like to have kind of clear career pathways moving forward, and how we're structured really enables that for people starting their career. I would say the biggest thing that maybe graduates would say about kind of the work that we do and joining us is that they get really good exposure really very young in their career. And I mean, that's from week one. You are given your client listing and you are, you're engaging with them from your first week here. And we really do want people to become kind of all-rounded advisors of the future. So it's really important that they get that experience on the job and actually real experience and real exposure to clients. So graduates here will be working with board members, will be working with senior leaders and senior executives of companies. So they'll get a real insight into kind of the problems that companies are facing, how those decisions are being made, and from a corporate governance perspective, how you can assist them building on the compliance, how you can learn, how you can create maybe a bespoke solution for them. So it's very much a challenging role. It's no 2 days are the same, we say, in corporate governance, which is probably why it's so varied and keeps it so interesting. So I definitely think that's kind of a typical structure you would see in the corporate governance space. So yeah, definitely involved from day one with joining.
Okay, thanks for that, Michelle. It's great, I'm sure, for people to know that they will get that exposure from the beginning, because I think sometimes people are concerned that they'll go into a role and they won't get to see the real job or the real life of it, for a good number of months or even years. So it's great to have that understanding. Yeah. So I suppose, Clan, moving on from that, as well as that on-the-job training and the day-to-day exposure that people are getting as a trainee and beyond, I suppose we probably have some graduates here considering this role or career going forward. And I suppose they're probably wondering, how do they get qualified? What are the qualifications? So could you perhaps talk about the training routes available to graduates, postgraduates, masters, that sort of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And there are a couple of several options in terms of where to qualify. So it's one of the interesting thing within corporate governance. It's not, there's no legal requirement for people to have a master's qualification or to be chartered. However, what we're seeing in CGI is this ongoing demand for people to be suitably qualified. And obviously with organizations like BDO, that leads into a qualification, a certified qualification with us, where you can become chartered and then carry that qualification through your career. So ultimately here in Ireland, there are two main ways to become chartered here in Ireland through CGI. The vastly most popular one is what's known as a dual master's, where you would study a master's qualification, and that would also at the same time enable you to become chartered with us. So you get two qualifications effectively for the price of one. So our master's program at the minute, we've two live master's programs at the moment. One is with Ulster University, which they teach at Marino Institute in Dublin, and the other is with Hibernia College. Both excellent qualifications in their own right, both with Ulster and Hibernia. Slightly different in terms of how they're set up. So Ulster University run their master's program through in-person sessions. They do block teaching, where you need to take a couple of days off work, which is supported by BDO, where you would take, a module would be done in a teaching block, and then you move on to the next module and taught over a 2-year period. Hibernia College do it slightly different. The day teaching, it's predominantly online. Both of them end up with a master's, so an online teaching where you study online, recorded sessions, and some in-person days. There's no right or wrong answer here for which one is better. They both stand up to scrutiny. They both teach the same modules on both programs, and both have an excellent reputation. So two very, very excellent qualifications. Probably comes down to a combination of, if you end up here with BDO, which from a manager point of view, when you're talking to your line manager or HR, which suits them in terms of how the function works, and then how best you learn. I think that's also the way. So there's slightly different ways of learning. And I think that generally, what I would say is successful, that's done in partnership with your team leader, the HR, your manager, your HR partner, to get to that answer. At the end of that period, what you get is a master's from either Hibernia or Ulster University, and also then you become a graduate of the institute. The beauty then with this, because you're working and studying at the same time, which is 99% of all students are working in practice while studying. On very rare occasions, we have people just continue on to do a master's, but in the vast majority of cases, they're working while studying. So in order to become fully chartered, we look for people to have 3 years relevant work experience. But because you're working in practice, by the time you get your qualification, you're at a point of, you get your qualification with Hibernia Rose University, you're already got the relevant work experience to become an associate and i.e. fully chartered. The one other piece I would just tell you, and again, this is probably more relevant to students who already have a master's. So if people are coming and they have a master's already in their pocket as a qualification, there is an option, both with us and Hibernia, to pull out of the postgraduate diploma level effectively, where they've done all the modules, but they haven't done their dissertation to get to the full master's. And from our point of view, and again, this would be in partnership with BDO, from our point of view, we are happy with, if once they have studied the modules, to become chartered with us. There's no right or wrong answer there. My advice generally is to people, if they don't have a master's, continue on and get it. But if you have a master's, there may be an argument to say you can step out without doing the dissertation. Just to highlight, there's one other qualification. You can study directly with us. It's more in the minority scenario in terms of here in Ireland, where people study and they can study directly with us, where they do the modules in a module by module basis, self-learning, self-taught, study textbooks, and a 3-hour exam for each module. The only reason I would be recommending people down this path is if they're coming with, they either might be a qualified lawyer to change a career point of view, or they have multiple exemptions that they don't. There's 7 modules you'd have to study with us. Would take longer than doing a master's, unless you have several exemptions to be able to take that in place. And just even from an Irish point of view, again, the majority of our students would come through a master's program is the absolutely preferred path. But if you have multiple exemptions, something we would look at on a case-by-case basis, it might be worth considering studying with us directly. There is one other qualification, a certificate qualification with the Law Society. Probably not overly relevant for this group here, but it is something if people wanted to see, are they interested in taking a step and doing that certificate in company secretarial practice and law. And again, this I think it's more relevant to a conversation again with your line manager or with your HR partner in BDO as to what would be the correct fit. And again, to me, the majority of people that will come through this program would be doing a master's. But either one is a nice pathway, a nice step through. We will assist you along the journey, as again BDO will, but we'll assist within CGI to help you make that right decision and support you through that education journey and to the point when you become qualified and you get your chartership and you're an associate now with the Institute. Hopefully that touches all those points, Olivia, and I haven't blinded people with science there.
It's a lot to take in. Michelle, briefly, just from an employer perspective, is there anything you want to add in there around the support that BDO provide for people taking on these qualifications?
Yeah, I think that the pathway we've kind of support and have support in the past is the Masters with the University of Ulster, which is done here in Marino. We're very conscious, I suppose, that getting qualified is really, really important. And when graduates are coming out of university and starting a job, one, that's a lot in itself. And then you're meeting colleagues, you're getting to know new work, and then doing a master's or studying on top of that. So we are very conscious of, work-study life balance. We do want people to have the balance, and we want them to be successful in all, I suppose, areas, all of that, the work, the study, and make sure that they have a life outside of here. So we hope that our training contracts that we have here would really lend to that, in terms that not only do you get financial assistance, but you do get study leave days that will cover your course attendance and any kind of days that you would need above that you might need to study. So we like people to keep study leave days and annual leave days separately. Go off, have your annual leave, enjoy, relax, because everyone needs that. So that's why we like to offer the study leave days as well. So hopefully, I would just say from that perspective, it's a strong pathway to getting qualified, and it definitely lends to that qualification as well.
Great. And I suppose as a follow-on from that, I'm sure a burning question on everybody's mind is, what skills do employers look for, as well as the qualification? What kind of core skills, competencies are you looking for?
It's the question we do get in interviews, like, what does a successful year one trainee look like? What does that look like? And people do come in and ask it. And it is a great question for people, to know kind of what the benchmarks are. I would say that the main skills that we look for are communication, ownership and accountability as well. Then you have a huge one for us is attention to detail. It's our job that is what it is. It's complete attention to detail. So that's a really, really big one that we have. And we are obviously client facing, which means we're fast paced. Everyone needs something yesterday. So having good time management and prioritization of tasks definitely lends. And what I would just say to people who are applying for jobs, everyone has probably had a summer job, a weekend job, all those skills that you learn during those experiences. Please showcase them and highlight them in the interviews and talk about them, because whether you've worked in a shop, I did waitressing, there's challenging people you've had to come across, you've worked in teams that maybe haven't had the great dynamic. How did you handle it? And I think those people really stand out in interviews when you are coming across, because you can showcase the foundation skills that you have there, and you're not kind of starting from scratch as well. So if you definitely have them, I think it's a good thing to discuss when you're interviewing and definitely hone in on.
Okay, great.
Can I just add a small piece to that, just as well in terms of for employers, because the other piece, I think, just to complement what Michelle has added, that when you come on a graduate program or a trainee program with BDO or in any organization, is embrace every challenge and every chance you get with that mix of experience and that mix of exposure. The more you take on and you can allow yourself to learn in the early part of your career, the vastly more employable you are as you progress through your career in terms to advance into positions like Michelle's in now, to become a director or to be able to move across different organizations. But, where you get a chance to take more exposure, more experience, you should grab it with your two hands through this any sort of graduate or training program, because it will absolutely stand to you through your 10, 15, 20 years, 30 years of your career. And I just think it's important to emphasize that the real value that is, and the real value of a training program or a graduate program and a supportive employer like BDO will just give you huge opportunities through your career as you progress. And the COSEC career, governance career, is a career you can have for life for 20, 30, 40 years. And it is a fantastic career opportunity to have. And just to state that, but just embrace those opportunities when they come to you, particularly in the early part of your career.
Yeah, great advice, Colin. For those of us who are a bit more progressed in our career, I'm sure we can all think of opportunities we've taken, but opportunities we've also missed or bypassed. So brilliant advice. Thank you for that. Look, no good webinar would be complete without us mentioning AI, right? And I'm going to let whichever one of you want to jump in here, but I suppose, can you talk to me a little bit about how is AI being used in governance?
I don't mind starting on that one. AI, yes, it's hugely topical, and even at board level, it's on everyone's agenda. Practically, and kind of when you're applying it in your day-to-day role, the one thing I always say about it, it's a fantastic tool. But for graduates who are starting careers and who are learning their trade, essentially, the one thing I would say is do not become heavily reliant on it, particularly in the area that we work on. You can find yourself a last minute board meeting that you have to go to, or a client call with a lot of advisors that there's something happening, a transaction. And you do have to know your own trade, your own skill, the legislation. You have to be able to contribute within that kind of real time and off the cuff nearly, that it could be just a surprise meeting or a call. So one thing I will say is learn the information, learn the knowledge, because you can't stop a meeting and say, hold on, what I just asked AI for the answer. It is a fantastic tool, and we have been seeing it, being rolled out with systems that we use whereby it's kind of summarizing constitutions and documentations and board packs. And I do think it's a really interesting space to be in, particularly moving forward. I have seen, other companies actually bringing it into the board meetings, and how is that going to look like going forward, and where are the decisions being made, and all those kind of conversations that are coming up are really interesting to be part of. So I definitely think it's a space that's evolving and it will be coming to see. It'll be interesting to see what's going on in that. But I would just say to people, please just don't underestimate the importance of actually knowing the knowledge that you need to, because that is your foundation. That's your basics that you need to know. And AI isn't always right. I had somebody call me and ask me legislation change last year relating to audit exemption. Somebody called me, asked me a question. I gave them the answer. They called me back and told me that's not what AI said. And I said, well, AI in this instance is not correct, because it's picking up old legislation and old articles, and if you don't ask it very specific questions and give it a lot of detail, you will get wrong information. So having the foundation and the knowledge, then you're able to apply AI in a more useful and more efficient way, because you can ascertain what is actually correct and what you kind of need to be mindful of, and how efficient, then you can use it for efficiencies and drive efficiencies.
Great, thank you. Con, is there anything you want to add in there on that topic?
The only piece I would add, Michelle, is 100% correct in all what she's pointed out there. The only thing I would add is there is really good research and advice out there. So it's like everything, and a kind of a new tool as AI is developing and evolving, is seek out some of this learning. Like, there's good learning in that. Through your master's programs, there will be plenty of talk about AI and how it's used. We've developed a couple of risk guides within CGI, and we have a dedicated section within our website specific to AI. Happy to share it with the group afterwards. I'd send it on to both of you, and you can share with anybody who's interested in that. So there is really good advice and guidance out there, but in its true sense, that's all it is guidance. That the knowledge piece, you can't rely it as giving you the 100% answer, but it can guide you to the right answer. And I think the more research you do, the more you embrace it and say, okay, let's see, how can this help me? Where are the blocks? Where are the hindrances? And there's really good guidance out there, not just with us in CGI, but if you went to Chartered Accountants Ireland, you went to some of the other partners, the BDO, there's good webinars, there's good research papers on this. All these things you should embrace. Again, it kind of adds to what I talked about earlier, but embracing that mix of experience and exposure. AI is clearly that. It's going to be a key part of your career for the next 20, 30 years, 40 years, whatever length of time you stay in this career. But you should, read documents, read your research, do your CPDs, all these things are crucially important to help you form the right answer.
Absolutely. Yeah, great. Thanks. So, Michelle, I'm going to ask you around career opportunities in field, and I see a couple of questions in our Q&A which actually relate to this, so I'm going to bring them in here as well, if that's okay with you. So I'm going to ask you to talk to me about what opportunities are there for graduates entering this field, with two questions in that very much relate. Firstly, is there a shortage of talent in corporate governance in Ireland at the moment? And also, can international students get admission into the graduate programme? And then I have another question with somebody with experience, but we'll ask that after this. So, Michelle, you might talk to me about what opportunities are there within BDO.
Yeah, so I suppose to answer those two questions would be yes to both. I would definitely say there is a shortage of good corporate governance individuals in this industry. And it's really actually difficult to get somebody who's good in this space. And that's why I do think joining a training program is hugely beneficial. It gives you the opportunity, it gives you the scope to learn, to ask questions, to make those mistakes early on and at whatever stage you're starting your career. So I do think having a training program behind you is really, really beneficial in building your career. Career opportunities, I suppose, in BDO. Myself, I joined over 12 years ago. I actually wasn't fresh out of university when I joined. I was a recession person, so came out, got a job, actually went to career guidance, learned about company secretary in career guidance. We learned about it in company law, but didn't actually think that it was a practical job that you could get out of university. So I joined the master's and I got the job here. So I started as a trainee. And I have to say that myself and the graduates that we have coming through, it's the variety of work and the challenges that you're always facing really keeps the job interesting. And I suppose it's why some of us stay in this career for a long period of time. The thing that I found most, I suppose, beneficial about BDO was actually the support and mentorship throughout my career here. I've been very much supported and mentored throughout. I went from trainee to director, and kind of any goals or any career aspirations that I did have were always discussed and talked about and worked on, and made sure that we were hitting everything to get there. So I do think we like to make sure that the trainees coming through also receive all that kind of support and mentorship too. Early exposure was brilliant. You get to, I suppose, start your clients, as I said, week one, you're into it. It can be daunting. And the first 3 months when you do it, you are going to be, oh my God, what's happening here? But once you kind of get into the swing of things and I suppose get to know your clients, get to know the work, it's actually really rewarding, and it's really challenging, and no 2 days are the same, which keeps it really, really interesting in this space. And I suppose technical experience and exposure, particularly in BDO, we get very good technical experience and work that we come across. So that's broadening your skills, broadening your knowledge. And it really does make you a kind of more well-rounded advisor and a good corporate governance, I suppose, specialist. In terms of training, With us, obviously I said we support the masters, but we actually, a lot of it's on the job, but we actually do structured training within the department as well. So the first month you join, we actually have a program for the first month that you do to get you kind of up to speed on basics that we do here. And then we do training sessions throughout the year as a department. So we do technical training sessions, you know, anything that we come across, we might share. So we're all learning and we're all showcasing kind of our client and work and what we have done. So I do think that's important. And as Con said previously, to absorb all that information, to listen to people on phone calls when you're sitting beside them. How did they react? How did they, you know, what was their demeanor? What was their voice like? You know, all that things when you're young, kind of starting your career and you're not really sure how to, I suppose, respond or react is really beneficial, because then you create your own style of things. But I do think that's kind of important as well. And yes, sorry, Olivia, to answer your second question, yes, we would take international students as well.
And this is a follow on, because there is a third question there, which kind of relates. So do you take on any staff who have worked for over 20 years, have over 20 years experience, but don't necessarily have an accounting or a legal degree? Or is it only graduates you're looking at the moment?
No, we not opposed to anyone. So whoever wishes to apply, please apply. You know, we will happily chat and to anyone who's interested in this sphere. No, we've had that in the past, where people have come in with experience and worked with us, and they might not necessarily have that degree or background, but yes, so no, we're open to everyone to join.
Okay, great. Thank you for that.
Can I just add a little piece to that, Olivia, just in terms of the shortage of talent? So clearly there is a shortage of talent here in Ireland and in the UK, interesting enough. Some of that is just the demands coming from the regulators, particularly in the financial services and in the corporate governance space. As a live example, in a previous life, I worked in insurance, so when I left 5 years ago now, I think there was only 3 people in the governance team in the insurance company I was in. There's now 13. So it just even give you a sense of demand and the increase and the requirement within that. Is the other beauty, I think, about qualifying and going through a training or graduate program is the qualification. Once you become chartered here in Ireland, you're also chartered in the UK, you're also chartered in Asia, you're chartered in Africa, you're chartered. So it's an international qualification. So it's not just your qualification would stand here in Ireland in terms of career. Some people think they're going to, travel the world. Some people don't. But that international element of opportunity does exist with the qualification and the support you get with BDO, even BDO or the international organisation as well. So there's opportunities clearly within that too. So that, the demand for suitably qualified personnel, both within BDO and the wider field, is huge. Interesting enough, not just in corporate governance, we're now seeing a growth in the requirements of sports governance. They're trying for, and not-for-profits and government agencies, because there have been failures in a lot of these organisations as well. So at some point, if you're looking to diversify your career into different areas that would be of interest to you, those opportunities would present yourself if you go through these type of programs and get suitably qualified. So there are fantastic opportunities. And just one last thing, I think Michelle has undersold herself a little bit. The other piece I think I would say about this career is COSEC and governance. It's a remarkably collegiate career. So people who are changing their career, coming into COSEC, you will find, and Michelle might be able to attest to this, that people that you start off your career with, you're meeting at events or meeting at other events, and that collegiate nature of supporting and helping people through the career. It's not, while there is always competition, but nobody is blocking people or anything like that. It is without, and I've been involved in the industry for 5 years, it is the most collegiate career I've ever been involved in, seeing that. It's something that you can take a bit of pride to and a bit of support. Michelle talked about the support in BDO, which is fantastic, but you'll find that through your career. As you come into this career now and you're starting off in your career, you'll bounce off people. People will move on to different places, and that's fine. That's what happens. But there's always that collegiate nature, that support is there, and something that you should embrace as well.
We laugh that it's a very small industry. So you do meet previous colleagues and friends that you would have met and people that you would have trained with at all the kind of events or conferences and it's brilliant. There is a great kind of, I suppose, atmosphere when you do meet them, you catch up, how is everyone doing, what industries are they in? It's really interesting to see where everyone can go. So I totally agree with what Con said.
Right. You can definitely hear the passion coming through there, Con. So I'm going to finish with you because we're just coming up to the half an hour and there is a couple more questions. I suppose lastly, what advice would you give to anybody, graduates or beyond, who are looking at this option as a career? Because there's some people on here who may not have considered it before, who didn't really understand what corporate governance was. So what advice would you give?
I mean, I've probably preempted with some of the things I've stated, but just to restate, like it is a fantastic opportunity to work as a co-sec or governance professional. The career opportunities are so good. Michelle touched about it earlier on. Even in an early part of your career, you end up advising chairs of boards and executive members or board members. So you're in the hub and that key decision making of an organisation at an early part in your career, which I think is just, it can be a little bit daunting at times, but it's so fantastic. I'm saying the challenges do exist, of course they do, but you get to sit inside the boardroom and a chair could turn to you or a chief executive and say, well, if it's Michelle sitting there, Michelle, what are we right in what we're saying? What do we do here? Are we correct? What advice would you give? And you have to give advice. You obviously clearly need to know your topic. And again, I go back to that point about you do have to embrace that. Now, it doesn't always mean you have to have the answer instantly. You have to have done your research. If you have to take an answer away, you have to do that. Absolutely, without question, fall on your colleagues. Use the advice of your colleagues. Seek guidance from. Michelle talked about listening to people on the phone and stuff like that. But like, seek advice from your team leaders, your managers, your partners. There's a reason they've got to that position that they're there, and my experience is 99% of the time they will help. That people want to help, want to assist. There may be the odd time where maybe that doesn't happen. People are having a bad day, but I would say, it's a great career opportunity. Take the opportunity. If you get a chance to come into this space, you can have a remarkably successful career. As I said, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 years. I know I'm dealing with people that are 30, 40 years working in industry and have changed jobs 3 or 4 times to people who are starting off. There is that collegiate nature. Take on the exposure in your early part of your career, the learning, get your qualifications. I think all those things are really, you just need to embrace it at the start, and you will have a very successful and fantastic career. And just to state, and I know we're on a BDO call, but a company like BDO will give you fantastic support through your career, and particularly in the early part of your career as you're trying to make decisions. Once you're willing to do the work, the other last thing I suppose I would say, it's hard work. Like it's not while I speak passionately about it in the career, which I firmly believe, but there is hard work in it, and not every day is fantastically exciting, but some days are very exciting, and some days mundane paperwork has to be done because it keeps the company afloat and the organisation afloat. So I would say, if you're willing to work, you're willing to embrace the challenges that are faced in front of you, you'll get a most fantastic career, and you couldn't be in a better place if you get an opportunity with an organisation like BDO.
Great. Thank you for that. Brilliant advice again. And particularly around the piece there, being as part of your colleagues and learning on the job. I know within BDO, and Michelle will attest to this, we operate on a blended learning model, and we would say that 70% of the learning is on the job. That's where you get the exposure. That's where you get the experience. And we certainly make sure that we put that as part of our learning model.
Yeah, completely agree.
Great. So we've a couple of questions in here we might go back to. So first of all, there's one there. Is there an overlap between compliance and corporate governance and what they do in their roles?
I'm happy to. So it all forms part of one. Compliance is a corporate governance, is part of corporate governance. Corporate governance is the overarching theme. Within that, you have so many facets of things that can happen, and I suppose that you can, learn and concept. There's so many areas that you can go into. So yes, compliance is something that everyone must do every single year. And I suppose when we talk about maybe more the mundane tasks that we talk about, that's probably one of them. But it has to be done. And if you do not do it, if you do not comply with certain things, there is severe consequences, and it leads to penalties. It could lead to, bad reputation down the line, whatever that might be. So it would fall within the overarching sphere of corporate governance. But there is a lot within corporate governance, so it's one element of it.
Okay, great. Thank you for explaining that. We have another question here. What's the requirements to get admission for international students? I can probably answer that myself and just say it's the normal graduate recruitment process. So our graduate recruitment will open, I think, towards the end of August. If you watch out on our social media sites, you'll see it there. And again, you just apply like any other student, regardless of international or national, and the application process through there. And then Michelle, you might just qualify this for me. How many years is the program? So the trainee program, how many years is that?
Contracts will be 3 years.
3 years.
Yeah. And just add to that, because if there's an international question, again, in the COSAC governance world, it is a great mix of Irish and international people working in this career. So again, it's a fantastic career with, it's multicultural, multi-denominational. It's fantastic. It's great. And I'd say one of the best careers in terms of that multi-denominational, people from all different countries, whether they're coming from, Asia, Europe, Africa. There's a great mix of that beautiful multiculturalism, I think, which is absolutely fantastic as well, and enhances that learning experience and that work experience for people through the career as well.
Okay. And then I think we've probably covered this, but the question did pop out, so perhaps this person joined a little bit late. We might very briefly give an overview of this again. In the world of AI and tech developing, how is corporate governance evolving in practice, basically?
Yeah, so I think sorry, Con, go on.
Well, I was going to say, but somebody's asking how is it evolving. Well, it is ever evolving. I think is that first thing. So, and Michelle touched earlier on about there are some boards and some companies are embracing it more, and others are taking a slow and cautious step. And how AI will be used in the boardroom in 2026 will probably be different in 2028. Will probably be different in 2030. The one thing I think you can say about AI and the use of AI, the absolute leaders in this space will come from COSEC and governance, because they're almost the gatekeeper in terms of how this technology will be used and how it will benefit. And there's a potential that AI will take away some of the mundane tasks. I suppose if I use that word mundane, if that's fair, or certainly some of the administration tasks, to allow a COSEC or a governance profession to be a bit more strategic. But I could put, if I put 10 COSECs in a room, would be like you can nearly get a joke out of it. Some of them would be totally embracing it, some of them would be in the mid space, and some would be a little nervous. But that evolving thing about AI is you have to do your research, you have to keep checking what's happening, you have to see what's the basis of where's the AI getting their basis of information. It will be used more prominently over the next 3 to 5 years, and then it'll just become like the norm, like using the internet or like using the computer. That's probably the reality of it. But it is ever evolving and ever changing, particularly within the boardroom and how a boardroom would use it. So I would say you have to have your finger in the pulse there all the time.
Yeah, sorry, let me just add to that as well. Whether you're kind of for or against it, I think you definitely have to be on board with it for a certain extent, because you have to understand what is actually happening. So because it will impact boards, businesses. So you do have to have a level of understanding, because it is moving so quickly that it'll move way past what it's going to be too hard to keep up. So you do have to keeping on AI, whether you're for or against it, you do have to know what's going on in it. So that's about Matt.
No, 100% agree. 100%.
And I know within our organization, we get very good guidance from our innovation team and our tech team around the proper use of it and how we can build it into what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
So we're just coming up to the 40 minutes. I don't want to hold people much longer. So first of all, Michelle, Con, thank you so much for taking the time to join me today and give us the insight into corporate governance. And thank you everybody else for joining us. I hope you found the information insightful. If you are considering a career in corporate governance, or if you are now, having listened to the passion that came from Michelle and Con. Watch out for our social media channels over the next couple of weeks. We are doing a few more webinars that will look at accounting qualifications and tax qualifications, and we'll be joined by representatives from the different bodies, professional bodies, but also from managers, directors and partners in our audit and tax and risk assurance solutions areas. So watch out on social media channels for that. I think the next one is coming up in July. Any further questions can be directed to info@BDO, and we will endeavour to get back to you as soon as possible. So other than that, thank you very much.